Hi, this is Jim Humphrey with Imminent Threat Defense Firearms Training. I had a little trouble with the safety in this 870 shotgun. Thought I'd show you what I did to try to figure it out. This is the trigger plate assembly off a law enforcement 870. Clearly it's had some hard years. The safety would disengage just fine. When I went to re-engage it, it took a lot of force to get that pin to move. Clearly something's not right on the inside. So before we get started, let's talk nomenclature. So this is the trigger plate assembly. This is the safety, the detent ball, the safety spring, and the retaining pin. The trigger plate bushing, the trigger and its connectors, the trigger pin, and the sear spring. Before I get started, I'm going to note that the action bar lock is underneath the connector that comes off the trigger. I begin the disassembly by carefully releasing the hammer, and then I can just reach up and remove the sear spring. With the sear spring removed, the trigger plate bushing just pushes out from right to left. There's a retaining clip on the left side, so it comes out one way. The trigger pin on the 870 is a grooved pin, so one end is bigger than the other. On this gun, I drive it out from right to left. With the trigger pin removed, I can reach in, pull out the trigger and its connectors. First thing I'm going to do is have a look at the safety ears on the trigger, see if they're not broken or worn. These look a little bit worn, but not too bad. To get the safety out, I've got to remove this safety spring retaining pin. It's tapered on one end, so I have to drive it out from left to right, from small end towards big end. I'm careful to leave the punch in place to hold that spring in there. You can see that pin's got a point on one end. When I remove the punch, I cover the hole because the spring's going to snap up, and I can fish that spring out of there. Now on a regular gun, I can just flip the group over and give it a couple taps, and the detent ball should come out. But this one's pretty stubborn, a sign that something's not right in there. So I tried several different kinds of tools and picks to reach in there and try to get that ball started, but it just it wouldn't do it. So it was holding the safety in place, so I worked the safety back and forth and loosened it up a little bit, and gave the safety a couple careful taps to see if I could get the safety out of the way. That way I can reach in there with a pick and just give it a push, and that finally worked. So inside the hole the safety came out of, there were some weird wear marks that might have caused it to hang up a little bit. You can see on a new part there's relatively smooth edge in there. Also, this safety itself is clearly chipped up on the edges from fighting against that detent ball. The trigger, when I compared it against the new one, is pretty good. Now, if I put the detent ball in a new part, it just falls through, but in the old part, it wouldn't fall through. I had to shove it to get it to go through, so I tried a couple of different things to clean out these holes and polish them up a little bit. But it didn't really work, because in the end, I noticed when I looked carefully, there was elongation to that hole that the detent ball comes out of, and the detent ball is hanging up on the edge, so that means the trigger plate is done for. So it has to be the whole trigger plate assembly has to be replaced. So I'll reassemble it pretty much in reverse order, put that safety and the detent ball in there and the spring, and then that retaining pin. I'll start at the hole, pointing in first, and compress that spring and then push that pin across. Next, I'll drop the trigger in and make sure that the connector is on top of that action bar. Then I can take my trigger pin and have a look at that grooved in. It's a 1/4 groove, so that's a fatter end, so that's got to go in the last. And I'll drive it in from left to right. I can replace the bushing through its hole by just pulling the trigger back so that the trigger ears engage the bushing, and then double check that I've got my action bar lock underneath my connector, and then reinsert the sear spring. So I do a quick function check, but there really is no fix in this. The trigger plate body is matched to that trigger in the factory. They're manufactured together. So there's no point in trying to replace the body. You pretty much have to replace the whole assembly. Not what I hope the outcome would be, but that's the way it works sometimes.
Well, I hope you found that interesting. I'm Jim Humphrey from Imminent Threat Defense Firearms Training. Remember, enjoy your firearms, join the NRA, and be safe out there. Thanks for watching.